Hello, this is Dr. Grande. Today's question is, can I analyze the case of Mark Weinberger? Just a reminder, I'm not diagnosing anybody in this video, only speculating about what could be happening in a situation like this. If you enjoyed this video, please like it, subscribe to my channel, and consider supporting me on Patreon. I will put the link to Patreon in the description for this video. First, I'll look at the background of this case, move to the timeline of the crime, then offer my analysis. Mark Weinberger was born on May 22, 1963, and raised in Westchester County, New York. He lived with his parents, Fred and Fanny, as well as two brothers. Mark was the middle child. His father once worked as a physicist for the federal government. When he was young, Mark and his brothers were pushed by their parents to succeed academically. Mark studied philosophy at the University of Pennsylvania before attending UCLA Medical School. When he was living in San Diego, Mark married for the first time. This marriage ended in divorce. After graduating, Mark completed a fellowship at the University of Illinois at Chicago. In 1996, he started his own surgical practice in Merrillville, Indiana. This is a small town about 42 miles southeast of Chicago. He specialized in ear, nose, and throat surgery. Mark selected this area because there were many steel mills in nearby Gary, Indiana, which caused air pollution. This meant that people in the area had two things that Mark really needed for his practice: health insurance and sinus problems. Success came easily for Mark, and his practice grew. His waiting room was as congested as his patients' noses. On December 31, 1997, Mark married for the second time, but the couple separated 14 months later. By this time, Mark was earning over $1 million a year. Eventually, his earnings would grow to about $3 million a year. In early 2000, Mark went to a club in Chicago and met a 25-year-old graduate student named Michelle Kramer. The couple became romantically involved. On November 1, 2001, Mark and Michelle married in Chicago. They also had two other extravagant wedding celebrations, one of which was in Italy. The couple purchased a $2.4 million five-story condominium, which was equipped with an elevator. Several workers cared for the couple, including 3 women who cleaned the home, 3 drivers, a massage therapist, and a personal trainer. Mark also had a personal assistant. When the couple was ready to spend some time away from their magnificent residence, they could board their $4 million 79-foot yacht and go on lavish vacations. They purchased a 1.5-acre lot on a beach in the Bahamas, which was valued at $750,000. Mark advertised his practice with a website called The Nose Doctor and kept focusing on sinuses. At the end of 2002, he opened a new treatment facility called the Weinberger Sinus Clinic, which was partially funded by a $1 million loan from his father. The clinic featured a tacky marble sculpture of a nose. If there was one nose that deserved to meet the grindstone, it was that one. No expense was spared in the design of the office. The interior of the clinic looked like an expensive hotel. Mark had 40 employees and his own CAT scan machine. Everything seemed to be going his way. However, despite his focus on noses, something just didn't smell right. Now moving to the timeline of the crime. Due to the air pollution that I mentioned, Mark was quite busy in his practice. He saw about 100 patients a day. Based on the hours he was working, that meant he was only spending about 3 minutes with each one on average. At least 90% of the time, when a new patient came to his office, Mark recommended surgery. He ended up performing about 100 to 150 surgeries a month, or at least he was billing insurance companies for that many. Some of the surgeries he billed for were never actually performed. In addition to healthcare fraud, Mark ran into other problems with his practice. For example, he missed obvious medical conditions during exams and convinced people to have surgery by showing them images of abnormalities from other people. Not surprisingly, civil litigation soon arrived. Eventually, Mark was the target of over 350 lawsuits. His demeanor drastically changed, and he appeared to be overwhelmed and frustrated. At work, he was no longer well-dressed, was not shaving, and grew irritated with patients. his employees knew that his nose was out of joint. Mark pulled around $2 million out of his business and purchased large quantities of diamonds. His employees noticed that survival gear was being delivered to the clinic, including backpacks, thermal underwear, and portable shower kits. On September 18, 2004, Mark, his wife Michelle, his wife's mother, and a few friends flew to Greece to celebrate Michelle's 30th birthday. Mark's yacht met the group at the small island of Mykonos. The yacht contained Mark's camping equipment and survival gear. On the night of September 20, everyone went to sleep on the yacht. When Michelle woke up at 6 a.m., now on September 21, Mark was gone. She couldn't find him anywhere on the island. The captain of the yacht gave Michelle the number for a cell phone that Mark had been using. When she called that number, Mark answered with the word hello. Michelle said Mark's name, but he disconnected without saying anything else. The authorities in Greece seized the yacht because there were unpaid fees for docking. Michelle had to borrow money from a relative to make it back to Chicago. Upon her arrival, she discovered that Mark had left her a surprising and unwelcome gift, namely, a debt of $6 million. Mark's clinic closed after the bank discovered he had taken business money. In 2005, Michelle filed for bankruptcy. This same year, Mark was indicted by a federal grand jury for 22 counts of healthcare fraud, but of course no arrest was made because he was missing. The authorities knew that Mark had initially left Greece and traveled to France, but no one could find him. In early 2007, Mark showed up in a small ski resort town in northwest Italy called Courmayeur. This is in the Italian Alps. In 2008, he rented a 2-bedroom apartment there. Mark became romantically involved with a transgender woman named Monica. He told her that he was a former Wall Street broker who had earned enough money so working was no longer necessary. Maintaining his lifestyle in the United States felt like being in prison, and he was disgusted by people who lived lavish lifestyles. He was ready to be free in the wilderness. Mark stopped paying rent on his apartment and moved into a tent at a mountain campsite about 12 miles away. The rental agent contacted the police, who discovered that Mark was wanted in the United States. Figuring this out was easy because he had supplied his real name when renting the apartment. The police couldn't find him because he was in the mountains, but Monica directed them to his location. On December 15, 2009, Mark Weinberger was arrested. The police discovered he actually maintained 3 different campsites, which were stocked with large quantities of food and Viagra. It was clear that Mark was serious about survival. He was prepared to offer a stiff response and handle any hard times that suddenly arose. His resolve was firm and unbending. In February 2010, Mark was extradited to the United States. In July 2012, he pleaded guilty to all 22 counts of healthcare fraud. In October of that year, he was sentenced to 7 years in prison. In February 2014, Mark was released from prison and moved to West Palm Beach, Florida. Reportedly, he has been staying busy with his newfound freedom. He married again and was active in cryptocurrency. When he was in prison, he was known for being interested in yoga. This carried over to his life on the outside. Mark calls himself Yoga Doc and sells an online yoga course for $197. The name of the course is Superhero Yoga Moves for Dorks. It was designed to wow gym hotties and provide the optimal cool factor. Apparently, Mark's target customer is a socially awkward loner who constructed his identity by combining the traits of the characters from the movie American Pie. Now moving to my analysis. Here are my thoughts on a few areas that stood out to me in this case. Item number 1. Mark had a wide number of interests when he was young, including philosophy, astrophysics, and of course medicine. He had a good sense of humor and appreciated the comedian George Carlin. According to his ex-wife Michelle, Mark told her that his mother Fanny liked his younger brother more than him. When Mark would win awards, she would hide them in a drawer because she did not want his younger brother to feel badly. Mark desperately tried to impress his mother with his many achievements, including his successful medical practice. She would tell him things like, "You should donate your money to charity," and do some good in your community. Arguing would result, which left Mark estranged from his family. When his mother died, Mark did not attend her funeral. Item number 2. According to Michelle, Mark used to fantasize about having sex with cheerleaders. When he was in high school, he was not athletic, so he did not have any success in that area. To revive the fantasy for Mark, Michelle would sometimes dress up in a cheerleader costume. Despite Michelle's efforts to keep things energized in the bedroom, Mark complained about her performance. He once told her that she was not enthusiastic enough while performing oral sex, and gave her a DVD containing strategies for improvement. It's probably safe to assume that Mark would not have had a promising career as a marriage counselor. Mark was sensitive to any potential weight gain in his wife. He was obsessed with the idea that she might get heavier, even though she only weighed 105 pounds. Michelle never knew about the finances. Mark would give her $1,000 a week to spend any way she wanted. He would leave the cash on the kitchen counter, consistent with some type of transaction-based clandestine romantic rendezvous. Michelle said that on their last night together, when they were on the yacht in Greece, Mark said something to the effect of, "You really do love me, don't you?" Michelle confirmed that she did, and of course, Mark was gone by the next morning. He never contacted Michelle or any member of his family when he was on the run in Europe. Mark started over completely. His old life was behind him forever. Item number 3, what do I think happened in this case? This is just a theory, my opinion. Mark was intelligent, charismatic, self-centered, grandiose, shallow, cold, callous, hedonistic, materialistic, excitement-seeking, sadistic, arrogant, condescending, had low frustration tolerance, and had a sense of entitlement. It's unlikely that Mark could have completed his education without having some level of skill, but he did not use that skill. Instead, he focused on the most expedient way to obtain money. To him, people were just objects. He had no empathy and was extremely greedy. A surgeon who testified at one of the civil trials described Mark as the worst physician he had ever seen. As if this wasn't bad enough, this particular surgeon was actually there to testify on Mark's behalf. Even though Mark did acquire large quantities of money by working and by committing fraud, his lifestyle was unsustainable. He spent a lot of money even by wealthy standards and ran himself $6 million in debt. After Mark's disappearance, Michelle discovered that they really didn't own anything. For example, she'd lost the condominium. Mark disappeared because he didn't want to lose everything and go to prison. The night before he disappeared, he asked his wife about how she loved him in order to get one last ego boost before leaving. This was not a situation where Mark was contemplating giving up on his plan. This wasn't a moment of empathy. Rather, he was basking in the glow of his marvelous nature. He was so incredible that he convinced Michelle to love him. He was proud of this, even though he didn't care about her and was never going to see her again. Now moving to my final thoughts. When Mark was hiding in the Italian Alps, he was living his dream. No one was diligently searching for him by that point. He was only arrested because he couldn't resist telling someone his real name, almost like his true identity was desperate to escape. Arguably, Mark failed because he had a nose for trouble. Those are my thoughts on the case of Mark Weinberger. Please put any opinions and thoughts in the comment section. They always generate an interesting dialogue. As always, I hope you found my analysis of this topic to be informative. Thanks for watching.